Today we're going to take a look at muffins, more particularly the Muffin Method, while we make some yummy banana chocolate chip muffins. Stay tuned. Okay, so for ingredients for this recipe, I'm going to break it down into what I call dry ingredients and what I call wet ingredients, because when you hear the Muffin Method a little later on, you're going to understand exactly what I'm talking about there. Anyways, so I'm using two different types of flour. I'm using a whole white flour that I've got in here, all-purpose flour, and I've got a whole wheat flour in the bag. Okay, you're going to need some white sugar, some oats, cinnamon, you're going to need baking soda and baking powder. Okay, for wet ingredients, you're going to need milk from the fridge. You're going to need a banana. In this case, I've got a very mushy banana that was frozen beforehand. Egg, oil, and vanilla. And when I explain the Muffin Method, you'll understand exactly why I just broke it up like that. Okay, so this is one of those recipes that if you read at the beginning, it says you got to preheat the oven to a certain temperature. You want to do that before you start making the muffins. So you guys preheat this oven to 375 degrees. I've done that. It's in the preheat stage right now. We're ready to start making the muffins. Okay, equipment needed to make muffins. You're going to need two different size bowls, one a little bit bigger than the other. You're going to need both liquid and dry measuring cups. Okay, you're going to need measuring spoons. You're going to need a sifter like this one. I ran down to the local museum that we have just down the street there and picked up this old school gem. It's going to work out just fine for us. You need something to stir it in the bowl finally when you put the two ingredients together, the two types of ingredients together. You're going to need either a big spoon, you can use a fork, or you can use a rubber spatula if you want to. Okay, so I'm ready to sift, and in my sifter here I put the two different types of flours, the cinnamon, the baking soda, and the baking powder, and you would put salt if you want to as well. I'm going to give that old school sifter a little crank here for you so you get to hear what it sounds like. Okay, obviously there's certain ingredients you just wouldn't want to put in the bowl, right? The granulated sugar, there's no purpose of putting it in there. Chocolate chips, they're not going through there. And the oats as well. Okay, so after we've sifted this together, now I'm going to show you the complete mixture with the oats and the chocolate chips and sugar added. Okay, so I've added all the dry ingredients into the bowl. Now you have to make yourself whatever you want to call it, a well, a hole, a crater, a depression, like not, oh, it's a sad batter of muffins, but depression as in like walking on the sand depression. Anyways, so mix all the ingredients together and then create a depression or a hole or a crater, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I've set aside the dry ingredients in the bigger bowl, and now I'm going to put together the wet ingredients in the smaller bowl. If you don't have a really ripe banana like I used, we had a banana at home here that got too ripe, so we froze it, and then when it thaws, it really turns out quite mushy. I don't know if you can see it, but it kind of looks like a mushy slug. Anyways, in fact, that's where the name banana slug came from, I'm pretty sure. In the wet measuring cup here, I put the milk, the oil, the vanilla, and the egg all in one. But what I was going to say is if you don't have a really ripe banana, make sure that you smush the banana up in your bowl first before you add the milk and everything. If you try and do it at the same time, chances are you're going to splash milk and everything outside the bowl. So mash up your banana first, and then you can add all the rest of the ingredients, and then just mix those together in the bowl, and away you go. Okay, so I put all the wet ingredients now into the smaller bowl, including the banana. I label that as a wet ingredient. Okay, now we're going to show you the next step. Now we've got the dry ingredients in the big bowl, wet ingredients in the small bowl. We've made our little hole, crater, depression, whatever it is you want to call it. What do you think is going to go into that? Yeah, you guessed it, the wet ingredients. Here we go, into the hole. Now here's a very important thing. When we make muffins, okay, there's a certain thing you want to make sure you don't do. You don't want to beat the batter really, really vigorously. So you don't want to get in there and make a mess of it, okay? You want to just like lightly fold over the ingredients so it'll kind of look like wet oatmeal by the time we're done here, okay? If you do overbeat your muffins, that's when you start seeing the big peaks on muffins, and then if you open them up, you might see tunnels and holes, okay? It's created by over mixing. So I suggest using either the fork or the spatula and just kind of fold the wet ingredients into the other. I've chosen the spatula to fold the ingredients. So what I do is I kind of go underneath and I just gently turn the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. Okay, so I'm not over stirring it, I'm not vigorously stirring it, I'm just simply folding one ingredient into the other using the back of the spatula. And now that I've got this kind of wet oatmeal look here, I just make sure I get all that stuff off the bottom. Okay, and there we go. That's all it is. And you've got perfect muffin batter. The next thing we want to do is prepare our muffin tin. Okay, this recipe makes 6 muffins, and I only actually have 1 banana, so that was perfect. I'm just going to make 6. So what I've done is I've pre-greased 6 muffin container here thing with a little bit of shortening on the back of wax paper. If you don't have shortening, you could use butter, you could use margarine, you can use cooking spray. I would make sure after you spray it, I would wipe it around, make sure it's evenly distributed. In these other empty ones here, I'm going to put water in just after I put the batter into the muffin tins. I'm going to fill it up with a little bit of water just so it evens out the cooking temperature between with all the muffins. Okay, so now I'm ready to fill in the muffin container, the muffin tins here. You want to evenly distribute the batter to begin with, just so you know that each muffin has the right amount of batter. After that, you can go back and you can top them all up. Okay? So what I'm using is a big spoon here. I'm just dropping it into the center of the muffin tin. I'm going to just do a spoonful in each one to start with, and then I will go back with any extra batter and fill them up all equally as well. Okay, so now I'm almost filled them all up equally, and then with any extra batter I've got left in the bowl, I'm just going to simply top up ones that I think are a little bit deficient, like that first one I did compared to some of the other ones, and maybe the one next to it. Obviously my spoon size probably got a little bit bigger as I went along. Maybe this last little guy down the corner here, give him a little bit more. And there we go. Okay, so the muffins are ready to go in the oven. The oven is preheated at 375 degrees. Just want to talk a little bit about oven safety before we get going. Okay, so I'm using oven mitts. Okay, when we open the oven, you want to stand on the side of the oven. Don't stand right in front of it because you're going to get blasted in the face with 375 degrees of heat. So stand on the side, open the door fully. Okay, don't try and tip your arm in there through a tiny little space. Okay, now you've got 2 options. You can simply take the tray as it is. I filled up those other holes, and you can slide the muffins into the middle just like this. Okay, if that makes you a bit nervous, simply pull out the oven rack a little bit so you don't have to stick your arm in quite as far. Put it on the tray, put it in, and then slide the rack back into the middle of the oven. Okay? Make sure you set a timer, 15 to 18 minutes. Always set it for the least amount of time, because if you need to add time, it's easy to do. If you overcook something, you can't take the time away. So set it for the 15 minutes, check them, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a little bit. The muffins look like they're done. I'm just going to check by poking a toothpick into the center of one of the muffins and taking it out. If the muffin, the toothpick comes out clean, meaning there's no batter on it, then we know we're good to go. Put it in the middle. It's good. Nice and clean. I know the muffins are ready to come out of the oven. I'm going to do that right now. So I got 2 oven mitts on this time to safely take the oven or the muffin tray out, because I've got some hot water in there as well that I filled it up with. I'm going to place them on a cooling rack, slide back in my shelf, close up the oven, turn off my oven. I'm going to let these cool for just a little bit before I take them out of there, but you don't want to leave them in for too long, or else they'll start to sweat, meaning they'll heat up, and as they're cooling down, condensation will happen down below, and that'll give you a soggy muffin, which is obviously not what we're looking for. But if you look at these, they're looking pretty darn good. Nice kind of round tops, pebbly, bumpy looking, golden brown. They look good. Can't wait to try them. Okay, so remember, don't forget to leave a comment down below. Smash that like button. Hit subscribe if you haven't done it already. and we'll see you next week.